Welcome back. I'm really excited today. Dr. You're welcome back to Africa Chat. It's been a long time. We did promise we were going to come back again and have another discussion. I know life get busy, but finally we are here. So welcome again to Africa Chat, Dr. How you doing?
I'm good. I'm good. Thank you so much, Gideon, for inviting me again to come to your podcast to come and talk about storytelling, the new book that I've just written. Thank you so
Yep,
much.
yep.
Thank you.
Congrats, by the way. Congrats. It's I started looking at your book. And it's really already telling, and I'm really highly anticipating to get more information. So congratulations for the success of your second book. It's not easy. I know it's not easy. I, for one, I tried to write a book as well. I'm not even a quarter way done yet. I hope to get it done someday. I don't even have an actual set title for it, but with the little that I did, I can tell that writing books it's actually not easy. Even though now we have technology that help us out, it's not that easy. So
Yeah. Yeah,
congrats.
I'm glad that you're thinking about writing a book. I think you have a lot of stories to share, especially from your podcast.
Yeah,
Bring in, custom in Africa, to the diaspora.
yeah,
That's a story in itself. I think the good news is you're thinking about it. You have it in your mind that this is something that you want to do. I believe that you will do it. I would like to let you know, look, it took me, I mean, for the longest time, I've always known that I wanted to, document or, write a story or write a book in order
yeah,
to preserve, my cultural heritage. Coming from Nigeria, a small village in Nigeria, Ayiri. And I wanted to document as a way of leaving a legacy to the next
yeah,
generation, especially in the diaspora, what I went through, so that they also can, um, at least they can reflect, they can also connect to what has been passed down to me and to many of my kind over many generations. These storytellings are just ways in which we document the history of our people.
yeah,
It's a way in which we also convey values, the custom, tradition, the norm. It's a way of connecting or binding our community together. So I've always knew. I don't know if you remember when you were younger. Storytelling back in my culture, uh, it's always done orally.
yeah.
So and that was the reason why I decided that at least from my own standpoint, I don't really want these stories, to be lost to time. So I want to document this. So it's always been in my heart, but it took me 7 years, to
Wow,
write the first one. 7 years. And there are many reasons why it took me 7 years. But the good news is the second one, it took me only 3 years to write the second one. Um, but I'm happy to say that now I have achieved at least part of the dreams that I've had in my heart to try to document and convey and leave a legacy and pass down the storytelling that make me who I am
yes,
today to the next generation. So the good news, again, I go back, I'm going to circle back. The good news is you have it in your heart that you are going to do it. I believe you are going to do it because I'm just using my own experience
right,
uh,
right,
to encourage you.
right.
Thank you.
Well, thank you, Dr. Ayo. So what was the title of your first book? I've
Yeah,
seen it, but just I want you to tell the our listeners as well. What was the title of it?
absolutely. Sure. The title of my first book, it's Have You Ever Wondered How the Turtles, we call it tortoise back in Africa, but how the
Yeah,
turtle got its cracked shell? So that is the title of my first book. Have you ever wondered? The heading it's a little bit long. Later on, I learned, from authors like Annie,
Okay.
um, like some, writers that I'm really now connecting to. That uh, when you give a book a title, the title has to be short and succinct. But again, in the beginning, remember, I wasn't a writer. Of course, I went to school. I've gone to graduate school. Even in college, I've done a lot of writing, and my dissertation was quite a lot of
Oh,
writing.
writing
Maybe that is,
writing their book is on a different level. I tell you, that's what I said.
yeah,
I said I want to write a book, but I haven't been able to even give it a title yet. Because even coming up with a title is the hardest. One of the hardest part of coming up with a book. I didn't know that till I decided I wanted to actually do it, and then I realized that what am I going to name it? There's just so many information that I want to give out there. I can't
yeah.
come up with one adjective, if I should say, to
Mm,
actually name the title of the book, and hence, like I mentioned earlier, I don't have the title of the book. Well,
mm,
that's really good, and so
mm,
now
mm.
you are learning. You said you're getting accustomed to. So the only thing in life that I've also learned is you don't know until you try. So you tried
Absolutely.
it, even though the title was longer. It's an interesting
But I
theory. It's
think
an
that,
interesting caption.
but I do believe that even though it was long, next time, at least next time, I did it differently. But even though
Right,
it's wrong, it was long, not wrong. It was long. I am really happy with the title because I believe that it conveyed the message, the
right,
point, the theme of the book. That
right,
is one of the good news that I like, uh, because, with that heading, although it may be a little bit long, it's not as catchy, but the fact that I just wanted to make, you know, you know, pick somebody's interest or sort of
right.
say, I really never thought about that before. Turtle, really? Is there a history
That's
to,
exactly what I said when I saw it. That's exactly what I
so,
said when I
and
saw
that
the
was the
title. I was like,
reason.
oh,
Yeah,
the turtle has a crackback. So I was like, it looks like a hexagon or a
yeah,
pentagon, and
but
then
but 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 you know
I
what?
just told
There is a
myself
story.
that.
Yeah, there is a story behind all of that. A long time ago, I don't really want your audience, to miss this. A long time ago, according to our folk tales, I mean the stories
Yeah,
that was passed
yeah,
down, a turtle didn't used to have a cracked shell or cracked back, right? The back of of the turtle, right? It's like a
yeah.
calabash.
Oh wow.
If you remember
So
calabash,
it was smooth.
it was smooth, right?
Okay.
And the turtle actually takes a pride in that it was smooth, right?
Yeah.
It's like, sorry, I have to make fun of my forehead.
Wow. I like that.
So now for now, if I may go to the second one, I don't know,
Yes,
if you
yes,
want
Prof.
to, yeah,
Doctor. Tell us what's the title of the second book, and
yeah,
tell us the inspiration that's behind it. How'd you even come up with it? Like I said, I'm still stuck with my first book, and
yeah.
I have the inspiration still. The fire's still there. I've been thinking about it from time to time, but I don't know. I like I said, I can't even tell what the title is. So what inspired you to bring out the second one? Is it the way the first one was able to capture people's attention, or you just had different enthusiasm to actually go ahead and do another one? Tell us about it.
Yeah, good question, actually. I like that question, the inspiration behind it. Well, the title of my second book, as you can see, the title is a little bit shorter than I'm a good learner. I'm a fast learner.
Adanna's Magical Pearl. Yes, yes, yes,
Yes,
yes.
sir. So, well, I remember again, everything goes back to my youth, when I was growing
Okay,
up. Um,
okay.
and I really did understand the importance of storytelling. And as I said, It's always been in my dream to, since I've come to the West, to try to document those oral story into something that is tangible. Because I
Right.
don't know if you remember, um, uh, our elders,
Yeah.
they share a lot of wisdom, right? But it's always orally, right? But what
Yes.
happened a lot of times, as you grow, you forget all about everything that you have learned as a young person. Um, and then when they die, every all this wisdom goes with them. So and now my children now are in the West, right? They're not living in Africa, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So and I felt that it would be a tragedy for me not, um, at least passing those stories, the things that make me who I am, down to my children. And although I did share it orally with them, but I wanted to make sure that it's actually is tangible. And the only way I can make it tangible is by trying to recollect what I have been taught or what I learned when I was young, and try to make it into or adapt it into my own better understanding, to try to convey at least the meaning, the value, the tradition,
Right.
the culture, right, to the next generation. But this particular, although I do have several stories in my mind, right, but this one particularly appealed to me. This is where the inspiration came. You know about the Cinderella story, right, here in the West,
Yes. Yes. The
right?
famous Cinderella story. Yes.
Yeah, the famous Cinderella story. Then I was thinking to myself, I said, wait a minute. Africa also have a Cinderella story, right?
Correct.
It may not be
Correct.
exactly like the Cinderella story here in the West, but we have something similar to that. So
Yeah.
then I said, well, it would be prudent on my side to try to document as much as I can, to try to remember as much of what I remember from my youth, and put it into pen and document it so that we can pass it down to the next generation. So that was the inspiration. Those are the two inspiration behind the reason why I'm writing this book, or that I wrote the second book, Adanna Magical Pearls.
Adanna's
Yes,
Magical Pearl. Well, thank you, Doctor.
yeah,
That's really wonderful.
yes.
I,
You're welcome.
one part that I really love that is you saying that you shared the story with your kids. I
Yes.
remember growing up in Africa or in Ghana. My grandma and I think other adults that were in the house did tell us stories. Some of them were basically to scare us to not do certain things that they didn't want to. After we grew up a little bit, we realized that those myths were not true, and then we talked about it. We talk about it now to laugh about it, but it was a really good learning curve. It was a really good way of raising the kids or raising us back then. I don't know if that
Mhm.
applies here or that can apply. It can be applied in Africa now because because of technology. Now you can actually let me tell you something funny. Last week
Go
I
ahead.
saw a video of
Yes.
a 4 year old, I think, telling her grandma that she wanted to go get, I think, a fast food. She wanted to go get pizza. I could be wrong, but I think it was just a pizza. And the grandma
Yes.
said, I think it's Chuck E. Cheese. And the Chuck E. Cheese is closed. The grandma told the little girl that it was closed. She went and picked her tablet and then asked, Hey, Siri,
Oh
is
my
Chuck E.
God.
Cheese closed? Or what's the time? And then computer just went ahead and said, "Oh, it's not closed. They closed at 6 p.m. today." And I was like, "Grandma, it's 3 p.m. We have 3 hours. It's not closed. So why are you lying to me?" So it's become a little bit difficult to kind of like pass down some of these stories, understandably, because of technology, most importantly. But let me ask you. This
Yeah.
brings me to the question: what is the purpose of the African storytelling? What do you, in your own understanding, what do you think the purpose was? For them to be telling
Yeah,
us all
very
of these
good
stories.
question. Yeah, very good, very, very good question. But before I answer that question, I want to go back to what you just shared. yeah, and this is another reason why we're writing the stories. And this is another
Yes.
reason why we, as because I'm an educator by profession, we're encouraging parents to take the time to read. The technology is great, but the parents have to have time, take the time to read to their children. It is very, very important that we take the time, maybe half an hour, maybe an hour, you know, do something interactive, grab a book and read to the children, or get the children a book, take them to the bookstore, let them look around, maybe, and let them choose a book. If you don't take them to the bookstore, it is important for parents to understand and know what are the interests of your children, what are they curious about, right?
Right.
And then you get
Right.
a book that is appropriate to their level and to their age. I think a lot of time we are always missing. We as parents, I know we're busy a lot of times. So the most easiest thing to do is,
Especially in America. Yeah.
to get them technology or the iPad, iPhone, to get them iPad, and really we don't encourage the students or the kids to really sit down and read some story, because, and this connect to the next question that you asked, the purpose of the storytelling or African
Yes.
folktale that I just readapt. So I will start with this point that reading really opened a vast wall of possibilities to children.
Okay.
Uh, and that is really, really very critical. By encouraging the children to read, it builds their self-esteem. It does wonders, right, in the mind of the children. It increases their vocabulary, their comprehension, their ability to be able to see the world in different dimension. And we know that the world can be a really complicated, can be an interesting, convoluted, right, space.
Yeah.
So reading allows them to be able to see, to imagine different possibilities. So that is really, really very important. But African stories, just like African American stories, that's another thing that I want to also make another point on. So just because I am writing African stories doesn't mean that African Americans or Africans in the diasporas don't have their own stories. They do, and this is part of the answer to your question. The reason why we write the African story, or we love the African
Or tell
stories,
it. Yeah.
or tell the African story, is because it's a way in which we share the history of our people, right? And by knowing the history of our people, that basically helps us to form a strong identity of who we are as people, right? It's
Hmm.
extremely important, right? So storytelling is in the heart of all of our community. And by the reason why we do it is because, or we tell it is because it conveys the history, it conveys the value that is really rooted within our community, right? Just like the Adanna magical pearls, right? So there is a lesson behind all of that. There is a message that conveyed the whole story. There's a message that sort of conveyed. So it
That
impacts
conveys.
values. It impacts wisdom. It impacts, sense of belonging, right? Yeah, it also helps us, just like, I don't know if you remember John Lewis. John Lewis also loved to tell stories, right?
Yeah.
May his soul rest in peace, right? John
Yeah.
Lewis is a famous civil rights, hero of ours, right? But John Lewis has gone through a lot of tremendous, terrible experience, right?
Yeah.
So imagine if John Lewis didn't share his story, or somebody doesn't share the story of John Lewis, right? To the next generation, no one ever documented that John Lewis, right? What made him to be a civil rights leader, right? Was this. Imagine if no one ever shared about the story how he was terribly beaten, right? Or he was locked up, or how Martin Luther King was locked up, right? Was
Yeah.
maltreated. Then now the next generation will not understand what the fight is
The
all about,
importance.
right?
Right.
So
Right.
imagine if nobody sort of said that several millions of Africans were taken from Africa and they were brought, against their will, and many millions died on the way, right? Uh, but many really were put into this, into this land to cultivate it, all right? And they were not really treated very well. So then there is no way in which our people now will be able to have a sense of, who we are and what the
Belongingness.
fight should be all about.
Right.
So
Right. So,
that is
Dr. Ayo,
another.
let me ask you this. Let me
Yes,
ask, I don't mean
yes,
to cut you off.
yes.
From
No,
what
no.
you're
By
saying,
all means, please.
I just had a follow-up question.
Yes.
I went to high school in Ghana, right? And
Mm.
I did know a little bit about the African American the slave trade story. Just a little bit of it. Didn't really make sense to me at that time. I could be wrong. I don't know what they're teaching in schools right now in Ghana, for example, or in Africa. I don't know the syllabus. But I felt like, and I know a lot of people are going to agree with me on this. I felt like Africans are not really taught so much or enough, if I should say, about the African American story, about the slave trade. I heard about it. I was taught in school a little bit. I don't even remember taking a test in Ghana. And then any of these questions came on the test that, oh, when did the African Americans, or when was the first slave ship taken out of Ghana, stuff like that. It was just basically brushed slightly, and then it was just dusted and just put away. I came to know most of the things I know right now about slave trade, about African Americans. I didn't know there were black people in America at some point. I just didn't know that they were actually brought here unwillingly and by force. And I didn't know so much about what I know about slave trade, Martin Luther King, because like I said, I could be lying, but I don't remember ever being told about Martin Luther King in high school in Ghana. So I feel like Africans are not really like made aware of the African American story enough, and so some people don't really appreciate how lucky we are to have not been involved, or to have been actually have our great grandparents being left back in Africa. What do you think? I may be lying, but I just want to pry your mind about what you think about that. Do you think I'm right, or it's just me totally just mistaking everything altogether?
Well, well, in my time, when I was going to school in Africa, I learned. As a matter of fact, the first time I learned this song, uh, from my history teacher back then. Uh, there is a book that we used to read about African American, or the Africans in diaspora, or the Africans that were taken away. Um, and one of the songs that I remember my music teacher used to, yeah, I guess we used to sing this song. It's a really, if I sing it, you know. But the lyrics, I'm not a good singer now. Now, don't laugh at me, please.
I
But
won't.
it
I
goes like
promise.
this. It goes, now I may mix the lyrics because I've not been singing it, but it's a really popular song. Sweet Lord, sweet chariot, coming
Okay.
to carry me
Yeah.
home.
Yeah. Yeah. I
Sweet
know the song.
Lord, sweet chariot, coming to carry me home. Right. I used to remember those songs. Oh my God. I mean, when we read about the story of the African Americans, back then. It's heart wrenching. I don't know how to. I've I sometimes I pinch myself, right? I read
Yeah.
about
Yeah.
this Alexandria that we have in Virginia, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Literally, right? The first I knew about Alexandria in the book from history class, right? I
Wow.
literally did. And sometimes I pinch myself. I said, wait a minute. I read about Alexandria and all about the trading of the slave of our people, right
Yeah.
back then. And
Yeah.
I see the drawing, the sketches, and and then it's kind of like to be honest with you, my wife and I even, and we've taken our children over to Alexandria, to that part of Alexandria where the slave trading was being done, right? Sometimes I just pinch myself, right? I cannot believe that I am I'm right here facing what? History.
Right.
This really
Right.
took place right here, right? So my answer to your question will be it could be the curriculum, right? Because curriculum are not the same, school are not the same, right? It could be the manpower, because I remember also being in high school, there were times that we don't have teachers to even teach us. So we have to learn on our own. We have to do the
Okay.
reading, right?
So
So
you
it
believe
could be
that
that.
most of the things you know or you knew about the slave trade, even after the aftermath. I didn't know the aftermath. I didn't know anything. I just learned that they picked a few black people, they shipped them away. In fact, some people, so a king from Togo was greedy enough. He was like in charge, selling his own black fellows to the white people. And then I think, if I remember correctly, personally, I'm just speaking on my own behalf at this point. That's all I remember up to. I didn't know aftermath what had happened. They came here. Did they ever gain freedom? Did they ever gain property? Did they ever become people of themselves? I didn't know that. I didn't hear anything about it. I didn't learn anything about it until I came to America. That's
Yeah,
what I'm saying. Has that
yeah,
been updated? Has that been taught in Africa for people to know? This is what
yeah.
happened
Uh,
even after they came. Do you
yeah,
think
for
there's a
me,
curriculum for that?
yes, I did learn. I learned about when it was abolished. I can't remember the date. Forgive me for that. I did remember how it was abolished. I did remember the efforts of the British to try to make sure that at least to intercept
And
all those,
Jefferson Davis and
you
all of
know,
that
uh,
stuff.
y- you know. Um, I read about that. Uh, but the civil rights leaders, to be honest with you, of course, when I came, I was a little younger. It was when I came to America that I learned a little bit about the civil right leaders, and I really I am I don't know I am um, I, I don't know. I revere them.
Okay.
I really I love them, right? Because without all their struggles, uh, I wonder if I will be here in the United States or whether
Right.
you
Even
will
if
be
we
in the
were where
United
we're going
States,
to be free. Yeah.
right? Or the opportunities that we have at this point.
Yeah.
So, and I believe that we are all sort of connected. Um, but one thing that I really would like to see more of at this point and this is another reason why I'm also another inspiration behind the book that I'm writing because we're in the diaspora.
Yeah.
I wrote this book not only for my children as a legacy, but I wrote this book for all of our children who are in the diaspora. Unfortunately, they will not have the opportunity to grow up like the way I grew up.
And sit by the
You know,
fireside and actually listen to the
yes,
original story coming from an
absolutely,
older person. Doctor, let me ask you, do you think
absolutely,
that the
yes,
African storytelling is only for Africans to enjoy, or
no,
because how do you see it coming out as an impact for a non-African? Because most of the
yes,
African American, for example, they
yes.
don't consider themselves like as pure Africans or as just Africans. How do you think this is going to benefit or impact any of these people at
Yeah.
all? Do you? Mm-hmm.